Have you ever had one of those days? A day where small mistakes seem to pile up. Maybe you hit reply all on an email that was definitely meant for just one person, sharing your weekend gossip with the entire company. Or perhaps you confidently followed your GPS down a dead-end street, turning a quick trip into an hour-long adventure. We've all been there. You forget your keys, you burn the toast, you call someone by the wrong name. These are the small, everyday blunders that make us human. They're the source of a momentary facepalm, a bit of embarrassment, and eventually, a funny story you share with friends. They're harmless footnotes in our personal histories. But not all mistakes are created equal. Some errors have consequences that ripple far beyond a single awkward moment. Imagine a mistake that doesn't just ruin your day, but tanks a nation's economy. A misjudgment that doesn't just lead to a funny story, but to a tragic loss of life. What happens when the stakes are infinitely higher? When a single, seemingly small decision made by a king, a general, or an engineer spirals out of control, reshaping the very course of civilization. We're talking about the kind of monumental screw-ups that redraw maps, topple empires, and decide the fate of millions. A single signature on the wrong document, a misunderstood order on the battlefield, a tiny, overlooked flaw in a grand design. These aren't just mistakes, they are the hinges upon which history turns. Get ready, because we're about to dive headfirst into the most epic fails and colossal blunders the world has ever seen. These are the stories of how one person's bad day became a turning point for all of humanity, sending the world spinning in a completely new and often disastrous direction. These are the mistakes that changed everything. Our countdown begins in the legendary city of Troy. For a grueling 10 years, the might of the Greek army had crashed against its impenetrable walls, a decade-long stalemate born from a stolen queen, Helen. Heroes like Achilles and Hector had fought and fallen, yet the city stood defiant, its defenses rumored to have been built by the gods themselves. The Greek forces were exhausted, their morale shattered. Brute force had failed them time and time again. It was clear that if Troy were to fall, it wouldn't be to a sword, but to a trick. Enter Odysseus, the cunning king of Ithaca, a man whose mind was his sharpest weapon. He saw that the Trojans' greatest strength, their unshakable confidence behind their walls, could be turned into their fatal weakness. His proposal was audacious, bordering on insane. The Greeks would pretend to admit defeat and sail for home, but they would leave behind a parting gift, a colossal wooden horse, supposedly an offering to the goddess Athena to grant them safe passage. The risk was astronomical. What if the Trojans simply burned it, or worse, discovered the elite soldiers hidden within its hollow belly? As the sun rose on an empty beach, the Trojans stared in disbelief. Their enemies were gone, and in their place stood the magnificent, terrifying horse. Victory celebrations began, but some were wary. The priest Laocoon issued a desperate, now famous warning: "I fear the Greeks, even when they bring gifts." To prove his point, he hurled a spear into the horse's side. But in a horrifying twist, two giant sea serpents emerged from the waves and devoured Laocoon and his sons. The Trojans saw this not as a validation of his warning, but as divine punishment for his sacrilege. Ignoring also the frantic prophecies of Cassandra, they triumphantly dragged the instrument of their own doom inside their city. That night, as Troy slept, drunk on a victory that never was, a hidden hatch creaked open. Odysseus and his men descended into the heart of the city. They moved like ghosts, slitting the throats of the sentries and unbarring the massive city gates. A signal fire was lit, and the Greek fleet, which had only hidden behind a nearby island, returned with a vengeance. The army poured into the sleeping city. 10 years of brutal warfare had failed to breach the walls of Troy, but a single night of deception, fueled by pride and a failure to question the unbelievable, brought the mighty civilization to ashes. In 1867, Russia owned Alaska but needed money badly after the Crimean War. Tsar Alexander decided to sell this frozen wasteland. America bought it for $7.2 million, 2 cents per acre. People mocked it as Seward's icebox. Just decades later, the Klondike Gold Rush began. Then oil was discovered. That worthless land has generated hundreds of billions in value, Russia's worst business deal in history. The Library of Alexandria held all ancient knowledge, hundreds of thousands of scrolls from across the world. It was humanity's brain, our collective wisdom. Through neglect, conflict, and failure to protect this treasure, piece by piece the world's greatest collection of knowledge was lost forever. The unsinkable Titanic had space for 64 lifeboats but only carried 20, enough for half the people aboard. Pure arrogance. They ignored multiple iceberg warnings. The lookouts had no binoculars. The key was left in England. The iceberg scraped the hull, and 1,500 people died in freezing water. Overconfidence and ignored warnings led to one of history's deadliest disasters. Europe in 1914 was a powder keg. Archduke Franz Ferdinand survived one assassination attempt in Sarajevo, but continued his schedule. The driver took a wrong turn, stopped to reverse right in front of assassin Gavrilo Princip. 2 shots killed the Archduke and his wife. One wrong turn. World War I. Austria declared war on Serbia, alliances activated, and millions died. A driver's mistake redrew the world map forever. At Chernobyl, a safety test went wrong, causing a massive explosion. But the real mistake was the Soviet cover-up. They lied to the world for days. While they stayed silent, radioactive clouds spread across Europe. Sweden detected the radiation and exposed the lie, but it was too late. In 1928, Alexander Fleming made a mistake. He left dirty petri dishes before vacation. When he returned, mold had killed the dangerous bacteria around it. He called it penicillin. During World War II, it became the world's first antibiotic, saving millions of lives. All because one scientist forgot to do his dishes. The greatest mistake in history, a beautiful accident that gave humanity one of its most powerful survival tools. So, there you have it. 7 moments, 7 colossal errors that sent shockwaves through time. From ancient tricks to modern accidents, these aren't just stories. They are profound lessons etched into our past. They reveal a fundamental truth. History isn't a clean progression towards perfection. It's a messy, chaotic, and often accidental journey. What connects these blunders is the all-too-human cocktail of ambition, overconfidence, and simple oversight. These tales remind us that behind every great leap forward, there are countless stumbles, and that the line between a stroke of genius and a world-altering catastrophe can be terrifyingly thin. Our world wasn't just built on triumphs, it was shaped by its spectacular failures. But these 7 are just the beginning of the conversation. Now I want to turn the question over to you. We've explored our list, but what do you believe is the single biggest mistake in all of human history? Was it a military blunder, like Napoleon deciding to invade Russia? A political decision with unforeseen consequences, like the drawing of colonial borders? Or maybe a cultural cataclysm, like the burning of the Library of Alexandria, which erased untold volumes of ancient knowledge? Perhaps it's something more modern, an economic collapse or an environmental oversight. There are no wrong answers, only fascinating perspectives. I genuinely want to know what you think. Head down to the comments and let's debate. If you found yourself captivated by these tales of historical havoc and enjoy peeling back the layers of the past to find the weird, the wonderful, and the woefully misguided, then you're in the right place. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to become part of the Dream Intel community. Our journey into history's greatest blunders is far from over. We're already digging into disastrous inventions, forgotten empires that collapse spectacularly, and the most audacious scams ever pulled. By subscribing, you're joining a global classroom of curious minds who know that the best way to understand the present is to look at how epically we messed up the past. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next epic fail. Don't forget to subscribe to Dream Intel for more amazing stories.